Welcome to Road to the Great British Bake Off.
I got itty bitty cupcakes.
My name's Shelley. I'm a really amateur baker.
Probably not a successful bake.
And I'm spending 2021 working my way through Bake Off challenges. Every month, I'm tackling a theme, like Cake Week or Bread Week, using real tasks and technicals, and holding myself to the same time limits as past contestants. It's just like preseason training. So join me, and let's see what happens. Welcome back, and thanks for joining me for another episode of Road to GBBO. It's been a while. I have not been baking for many weeks, actually months. I think it was June last time I did a bake. So today I am going to try to finish up Italian week which has stretched over months, a month to a week. And part of the reason is my son's stepbrother Hugh watched the first episode of the new season of Bake Off and was a bit confused and annoyed that I wasn't on it. So clearly I'm letting the side down by not getting my practices in and getting my applications in. So I'm getting back on track thanks to a big kick in the butt from Hugh. And today I'm going to attempt my first ever Showstopper. I'm not doing it properly, as in I'm not practicing it a bunch of times. I'm just going to do it once and hope for the best. And the Showstopper is Sfogliatelle ricci, or riccia, Sfogliatelle riccia. So basically they are, they are a pastry that's heavily laminated. So once it's baked, the layers look like a bunch of kind of layered crunched leaves. Sometimes they're probably referred to as lobster tails. So the objective is to make a batch. The challenge is to make a batch of 24 perfectly flaky pastries, 12 filled with one flavor and the other 12 filled with another. The fillings are up to me. And I have 4 hours and 30 minutes to do it. We all know I've never finished anything on time. I don't expect to do this one on time either, especially given I'm just doing it once. From the start to finish. So my filling flavors will be kind of traditional orange, citron peel, that sort of filling. The second filling, to be honest, I don't know, and I'm gonna wing it. I'll look at what I've got in the house and we'll figure something out. But that's the plan. So let's get started. I've got my coffee to see me through. And I've got my apron to keep me clean, so let's get on with it and see how we get on. Okay, to get started with the dough, we need 1 kilogram of Manitoba flour, which from what I can tell is strong or very strong flour. We need 20 grams of salt and between 380 and 400 grams of water. Don't know why they've done it in grams. It seems to also equal out at milliliters, so 380 to 400 milliliters of water. Okay, step 1 is dead easy. I like that. So it's just put the flour and the salt in the mixing bowl together, combine them. I've just done it on low here and chucked the towel over because I've made that mistake before of flour going poof everywhere. Just to make sure the salt is thoroughly mixed in, because this is a lot of flour. I've never used a recipe with this much flour before. And then add your water and mix it gently. So we're going to do that. It's going to come out crumbly, kind of like when you start to make a pie crust. For this first stage of the dough, you don't want it super smooth, apparently. So we're just going to barely mix it together, and then we're going to dump it down onto the countertop to get it combined. My mixer wants to shimmy off the counter. Stay put. So we've got it loose and crumbly, fairly loose. And yes, I have detoxed, is that the word? Disinfected my countertop before I started. All right, so we're gonna combine it by hand, and really, you're not even kneading it, you're just trying to get it to kind of form together into one kind of unit. Now, this very strong flour apparently means it's very high in protein, so it likes to stick together. You see that already. Here's something I do need to consider: shape. Because his pasta machine that we roll it through is a lot wider than mine. So I'm going to actually make mine a whole lot narrower as a starting point to give it some hope of getting through my pasta machine. You can already feel the stretch in it. Now he says let it rest. Doesn't say for how long. So I'm just going to give it like 15 minutes. And then we'll move on because the big rest happens later. And hopefully that'll be enough. You can see I'm out of practice because I forgot to bring my lard to room temperature. And I'm gonna need it at room temperature in order to spread it. So when in a corner, get creative. We're gonna blow dry it with the hair dryer to soften it up. I'm sure it'll work out fine. Okay, so the dough is rested now for about 15 to 20 minutes. That's about all I can spare in a 4.5 hour challenge. And while it was resting, I moved my bowl around. I've got my pasta accessory on my KitchenAid. And the next step is to run it through the pasta machine repeatedly on the widest setting. So we're not going wide to narrow yet. We're just gonna run this through repeatedly until it is, as the man says, white and smooth. And it's still gonna be pretty thick, but that's okay, because that's all we need to do for this step. Struggling a little bit. Let's flatten that out just a little bit more. Come on, little machine, you can do it. I know you can. All right, that's not elegant, but it'll get better. Okay, so we've rolled it out to its thickest setting, and this is what we've got. A lot of dough. Now, my widest setting is nowhere near as thick as the gentleman's online. You can see it's that thick, which is probably half as thick as the exemplar video that I watched, but you know, I don't have an industrial doodah, so next step is to fold it in half and coat it with lard, a thin layer of lard all over the surface of it. And the reason for this is that we need to let it rest and it'll prevent it from cracking. So we're gonna do that now. Here's my hair dryered thing, and we're gonna fold it in half and we're gonna coat all of the exterior in lard. It's like a big slip and slide. I'm a little bit worried about my dough that I didn't mix the flour enough, though I suppose it is only flour. I feel like I can see little white floury stripes in the dough, which, but hopefully it won't matter. It doesn't say I've got to do the reverse side, the flat side, so I'm just gonna make sure that all of these edges are nice and greasy where it joins to the counter. Because I really don't want to screw this up. Okay, so I finished greasing that and I decided to grease the underside as well. I played back the video I'm using for inspiration and it looked to me like the tray he stuck it on had been greased before he set it on it. So I guess that means that it's larded on the underside. So I've gone ahead and done that. And I've decided to rest it in the fridge. There was no instruction on where to rest it, so I'm just taking my best educated guess there. And while that rests for an hour, I'm gonna start the filling. But so far so good on timing. We're 1 hour and 5 minutes in, which is pretty exceptional for me. So let's get on to the next step, the filling. Part 1 of the filling is dead easy. It's just semolina, which I have here and I've poured into the bowl. Salt and boiling water. So I put my salt in my measuring jug. So just pour 150 grams of semolina into a bowl and create a well in the center. And then we're gonna add our boiling water to our salts, add it and mix. Looks like so much water. So much for the well. There's still no point in that. Yeah, let's get these lumps out. Make sure everything's hydrated. And my Italian friend online says you'll know it's done when, what did it say? When it detaches from the sides of the bowl. There's a really nice smell off of this. It really does smell of cream of wheat, or I guess it's grits, isn't it? This is really grits. It smells great. Reminds me of being in Savannah. Okay. So we've mixed that through. I'm guessing that's pulling from the sides of the bowl. It's definitely not liquid anymore. And we have to let it cool before we add the sweetened ingredients, really. So that's it. We're in a holding pattern. So I'm just gonna let that go. I think I've got all the lumps out of it, so we're good. I'll see you in a few minutes, or in a half hour. Okay, so the pasta's been resting in the fridge for a little bit over an hour. I went over my time because I had to pop out and get some ingredients. So now we're gonna run it through the pasta maker, the more traditional style, where we're progressively setting it on a thinner and thinner setting until it is very, very thin. Probably as thin as we can manage to get it. As you can see, my dough is getting very long here. I've had to stretch probably about 4.5 feet over the length of my counter and onto the hob. So it's a little bit tricky, but doable. If you have a bigger kitchen, you'll be fine, I'm sure. And it's coming out nice and stretchy. So yeah, we're just layering it up to put it through again. Okay, I don't know if you can see all of this, but going down step by step in thickness, or increasing thinness, is stretching this out as you would expect, but it's getting to the point where it's unwieldy. I am like doubling back and forth, so I've just cut this into 3 pieces. You can see this is one length. Oops. This is one length that's already been doubled, so you can see it's already taller than I am, and I've got 3 of these. And I'm gonna progressively work my way down with these to make it just a little bit easier to manage and handle. Well, that took forever, and I'm nearly out of time, which is a problem. So that's my 3rd little bit of dough. The last bit, and you can see, I don't know if you can see, it's thin. It's all, I did it all the way down to level 8. I can see the shadow of my hand through it. I don't know if you can see that, but you can see my fingers. So that's as thin as I can get it. I'm gonna have to stretch it even thinner on this next step. So what I've been doing is, to kind of keep it under control, I am wrapping all the lengths around this wooden pin. I'm gonna do that again on this last bit. I've just been propping them up on some coffee cups like that and rolling it. So I'm going to do that with this, and then the next bit is to start the lamination process, and we'll go to the other camera to show you that. Okay, for the lamination process, you take the dough that you've gently rolled around your rolling pin and you lay a length of it, you unroll, you reverse it out, and you lay a length of it across your counter. Stop rolling. Okay, and then with your fingertips, you start a very fine roll at the end. This is your starting point, like a Swiss roll, because this is the center. And what you're going to do is you're going to take this whole mound of dough, thinned out dough, right? And you are going to roll. You're gonna grease, stretch, and roll over and over again. So I'm having trouble getting this started. Apparently it's very important to do this evenly. So this is going to get kind of wider and wider and become your tail. We call it the tail because as you make your rolled cylinder, every roll is going to be like the inside of a tree. That's going to be where your lamination comes from. All right, so you whack a bunch of grease, grease the daylights out of it. With your room temperature lard. Okay, and you're gonna stretch as best you can without ripping, because you want this to go as wide as you can. Wider, thinner. And it is nice and elastic, so that's not a problem. The bigger problem is that you get one little fold in this bugger, and it really, really wants to stay. No bit of a lie. All right. So I'm trying to stretch that to be about a foot. That's my goal. Word to the wise, rolling out the dough part for me took about an hour and a half just to get all of these sheets, because we're working with a kilogram of dough. So how anybody's supposed to do this in 4.5 hours, not sure. I suppose maybe if you're working with half the quantity, you're all right. Okay, so you want to keep this as tight as possible, and I can feel some air bubbles in it already, which is annoying. But this is what happens when you do a showstopper without any practice. It's like rolling. I don't know what it reminds me of. I feel like this is something I did as a kid, but couldn't think of what to save my life. Kind of like playing when you used to play with Play-Doh, I guess. Alright, and then we're going to repeat another length. And this is pretty much me for the next however long. So stretch, grease, roll, over and over until the whole thing is in one big cylinder. Okay, we're on the last length here, so I'm going to show you this part again because I've gotten a little bit better as I've done it. And just want to give you a few tips. First off, when you put the dough on the rolling pin, when I did it, I put a little bit of grease on it. The instructions didn't say to do that, but just to keep the layers from sticking together, just a very light layer. What I failed to do was to grease the ends, and what's happened is I'm so slow at doing this that the ends have all gotten crispy, and when I've been rolling it out, all these little hard bits have been falling off because, you know, they've dried up. So that's first tip. Once it's on your rolling pin, I would grease the outside edges just to try to protect it a little bit, just lightly. Okay, the other tip is when you are stretching the dough. So grease it all up and then lift it. And what I would advise is resist the urge to actually pull when you're stretching. Instead, just kind of let the natural friction of your fingers do the pulling, and then when your fingers kind of slip out the edge, pin down. Don't start right after the bit that you've stretched because it's a bit weak and gentle. So what I do is I come just a little bit further down, I leave a gap, and then I start another bit. And this is kind of slow because you really do just want to hurry up and pull it apart, but it stretches a lot better if you stretch slowly. I have ended up with some holes. It's not the end of the world, I don't think. Hopefully I've got so many layers. So again, making a gap. And then again, I do notice that the edges tend to stretch a bit better than the center in terms of being forgiving and not ripping on you. I do that pin down, and then what I do is, because I've got a wide bit, narrow bit, wide bit, narrow bit, what I do is I go back to the top and I pull out. And because it's sticking to the counter a bit, you can take the narrow bits and tug on them and pull them out and stretch them to the same width as the long bits. And if you're gentle, you can do it without even tearing it. So we've more than probably doubled the width. Now what I've been doing, because it is this more like a scalloped edge now, once you start stretching, it goes like this on the edges. I've been trying the best I can to square it off by tugging my way down here, so I don't end up with, like, you know, the bits like this that are like folded over on itself because of the shape of it, because it's gone not squared but a bit more bowed out. And then when I roll, you see I've got holes there from before. So when I roll over an area and then I just slightly lift and give it a little tug, like, you know, less than a centimeter, just to pull it a little bit taut. So lift off the counter and pull just a wee bit, and you'll get a little bit more stretch, which means a little bit thinner, which means probably better lamination. Whew, good Lord. Okay, so that took an eternity. I'm now on hour 6 of a 4.5 hour challenge. No surprise there. So what I did was I finished rolling it, greased the whole outside of it, and then stretched it to kind of double it in length. You know, pulling on it like, I don't know, you pull on something to stretch it and thin it out. So now I have to let it rest for 2 hours. Here's a funny thing. It typically says to let it rest for 24 hours. Now, I don't have 24 hours, do I? I'm going to cut it in half to fit it on this tray, and then stick it in the fridge. I guess maybe cover it with some cellophane. Right, while the dough rests in the fridge for the next 2 hours, we'll be eating these at 8 o'clock at night. I think I started them at 1 in the afternoon. I'm going to finish off the filling. So the recipe calls for, the traditional recipe that I'm using calls for the semolina, which we already did, 700 grams of ricotta, which I've been draining here in a bowl, 400 grams of sugar, and 6 lovely eggs. So put in the ricotta. I'm going to push mine through the sieve so it's nice and fine when it mixes in with there. Add the eggs, add the sugar, and then the spices are vanilla. Well, the spices for half. I'm gonna half the batch, and in one half I'm gonna put in vanilla, orange essence, 150 grams of diced kind of mixed peel, candied mixed peel, and the zest of an orange. For the vanilla, the orange essence, were those the only two? Yeah, there's no quantities given in the recipe, so you just do it by taste, I guess. For the second half, remember I said I didn't have a second flavor planned, so I'm just working kind of off the cuff here. So what I decided was I had some raisins, and I've been soaking them for a couple hours now in some spiced rum and Cointreau and a little bit of boiling water. So it's going to be basically a rum raisin filled one, and I might add a little bit of almond to the semolina as a extra essence. Okay, so the 2 hours are up, and I just pulled out my chilled dough. I've already sliced it down into pieces. This is the little tail that's left, and I'm not sure if you can see the little round circles in there of lamination. But this is the process. You need to slice them into about centimeter and a half, 2 centimeter wide, whatever that is. And then using the heel of your hand against the surface, your counter, you're gonna turn it into a disc, right? So from the center outwards, use the heel of your hand to press it into a disc. Those are ones I've done earlier. Don't want it too thin, right? So it's about that thick. And then using your fingers in the center and your thumbs on the outside, you kind of just work your way down, and you're trying to turn it into a cone sort of shape. So thinning out as you get to the bottom. And then what you'll do is you take that cone that you've got and you will fill it with your filling. Now, my filling is a lot thinner than it's meant to be. I was looking again at the one before, and it's supposed to be thicker like mashed potato and not runny. So I'm not going to fill that one because I have a batch in the oven now, but we'll do one more here. So working from the center out with the heel of your hand. You have all your little roundy rounds of layers of dough that we spent hours and hours making. And then with our fingertips in the center, we use our thumbs to work our way down and out to the edges. Like so. And I've got a little hole in mine there. I'm just going to patch that up because I went too thin. And by rights, when I fill that up and bake it, it should come out like little crusty leaves. All right. Here they are. Ooh, I nearly dropped them. All right, it's the first batch. So they went into the oven at, the recipe said 230 for 25 minutes. Mine's fan assisted, so I dropped it to 210, and I only put it in for 20 minutes, just so I didn't overcook them. And when I checked them, they were already starting to brown, so I pulled them out. But lots of lamination. So let's see how they taste. This is the orange and citron one. It's pretty nice. yeah, definitely crunchy. Can you hear it? Right, so success on lamination, success on flavor, not success on time. Do I even still have my clock going? Don't know if I do. Yeah, we're at 8 hours. 8 hours 34 on a 4.5 hour challenge. And I've only got the second batch in the oven there now, so I've got 2 more batches to go. So we're looking at 9.5 hours. So I don't know how you contestants do it. Fair play. But overall, success on flavor and technicality, just not on time. So that's it. Italian week is finally done. It only took me 3 months. That one's off the list, and then move on to another challenge next time. Good stuff. See ya next bake. Thanks.